And as I was finished the check and I was walking out, stumbling around with my giant leg rot, gamer rot, diabetic rot ankles.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Hunter's Fat Legs. In this video, we're going to talk about Hunter's giant monster legs we made for the Papa Meat channel. This was a fun one. This was a really fun one. So Hunter came to us with this awesome illustration here, and he said make some fat legs. Fat, monstrous, grotesque legs that are just wild.
My legs are a bit of a spectacle. I was being a little bit of a show pony.
This was a tricky one because obviously we don't have any life castings of Hunter's legs. What he did is we got a couple measurements and we just kind of winged it from there. So this one was full digital. We started off with some leg bucks. We matched the measurements of his legs, kind of what we could decipher of what his measurements were based on these two photos. And then we just sculpted the fat legs. We sculpted, using references of skin conditions, legs that look similar, but turn it up to be in that gross, kind of more cartoony, monstrous way. We digitally sculpt it all. We create a mold digitally of that sculpture, and we create keys. So our core, which is Hunter's leg, or what is representing Hunter's leg, has keys to lock into the mold that holds it perfectly center. We print sections of the mold because we are printing on Bambu Labs P1S printers. This is just regular PLA filament. We're using just cheap, gray, quick stuff, and we're printing blocks, gluing them together as we go until we have our two halves of a mold and our core of a leg. From there, we use a little bit of plumber's putty, fill up the seam lines as good as we can. We know we're gonna address the seam lines in silicone later, but for this we wanted to, you kind of clean it up so that silicone doesn't just leach in all the seams of these molds. Once we have our molds done and our core done, we are wrapping our core in cellophane just to keep the foam that we're going to be putting in this thing later on from binding to that and making it really hard to tear out. This way we can just slide it out, right? And then we're using silicone for our skin. So the silicone we're using is from Smooth On. It is EcoFlex 30. Squishy, flesh-like, but not too squishy. Easy to seam, easy to paint. And we're tinting our EcoFlex 30 with Silk Pig to get, just a basic light tone of skin. And we brush in thin layers of that. And then once we have our layers put in, we are draping in 4-way stretch fabric. We always put 4-way fabric in these just to keep the silicone from tearing. It just kind of reinforces the rubber essentially. So we lay our 4-way and we are closing our molds, a little bit of silicone on the borders to adhere to itself. And now we have our 3D printed mold filled with silicone. We start dumping in our polyfoam and that swells up and fills this thing up until we're right at the top. We let that sit overnight. The polyfoam we're using is Flex Foam 8, 2-part component. We mix it up and then you immediately dump it in, and then you just let it swell up and set up before you do another batch. So once we have our silicone fat legs foam filled and it's ready to go, we gently pop these molds open. Now, the downside of the 3D printed molds, there's the positive side, if you've seen our other videos, the fiberglass, the resins, you're wearing respirators, you're getting fiberglass mess everywhere. The pros and the cons of that, like the pros is that mold will last forever. You can throw it around, you can cast all kinds of stuff out of it, but it will last forever. The problem with a 3D printed mold, it's fast, it's quick, but it's just plastic filament. Even just prying these things open, they crack, they break. They're not meant to last a long time. They certainly wouldn't last multiple runs unless you make the mold really nice. But we knew we're only gonna need one pair of legs. We will probably only ever make one pair of legs. So the turnaround time, the cost, 3D printed molds, easy peasy, blast it out. We got our one good casting, set the mold aside. Maybe it could be used for another time, but probably never be used again. So we open it up and we get our awesome silicone foam filled legs. Now the next step is seaming it right away. You gotta seam it. Some of these EcoFlex silicones you gotta seam kind of quickly. If you wait too long, like the silicone that you use to seam, like on the silicone, doesn't bind to itself, so you can kind of, like, it kind of peels up. So you want to like get in there while it's still fresh. So we immediately seam all these seam lines, and really it wasn't bad. We also thought it could use a few more bumps and kind of swellings here and there. So using the silicone Mariah built up wounds and things and kind of made it a little bit more lumpy and interesting in areas where it was a little too smooth and boring. So once we have it seamed, then we're test fitting it.
His foot is like, yeah, and there's all this extra foam.
Lift your foot up. Yeah, once we get that. Can you get your foot in that? Yeah. Put the cross foot in there. Foot in the cross. The calf is a little bad, but we can just pull foam out. How thick do you think it is right there?
I mean, I feel like my skin's.
What about in the front?
Oh, this is thin right here. This is maybe an eighth of an inch.
What about in the front?
In the front, I have line of them.
So we take
I
it from the
think-
front.
I think maybe like right here in this fold, it's the thinnest.
I know that on the other leg too, that it's pretty thin around the top.
That's right.
It's pretty, yeah.
We found the largest size Crocs you could find on eBay. Found a good pair, decent price, ordered those. Learned pretty quickly that the feet are so large they couldn't fit inside a size 15 Croc. So we had to trim the Crocs a little bit to get the feet to kind of make sense in there.
This one's the bigger of the two.
I mean, we could still cut it in a little bit more forward.
Yeah. Yeah, this is hiding it nice, so.
Yeah.
We cut it a bit more.
So we stuffed the silicone foot inside the Croc and we did a test fitting. And in there we can kind of gauge, it's a little too tight, it's a little too roomy. Again, we're just guessing the dimensions of Hunter's thigh and Hunter's shin and his foot, you know. It needs to fit kind of universally. And then we move right into painting. So with this, we're using thinned down silicone and oil paints for painting. And we build up our layers of pinks and reds and Mariahs, mixing all kinds of purples and interesting colors to make these things look really disgusting.
So yeah, you need more bruising. It looks good, but it looks like there's only two colors going on. I just see purple and flesh. I'm not really seeing a difference in red. It just looks like this in different tones, just everywhere. So bruising would be brown and green, right? Yellow?
Yeah, I
Brown,
think it
green,
needs
yellow.
yellow. There's some areas where I have yellow that look nice, but you
Yeah.
had me go over with red, so now you don't really see it.
Yeah, brown, green, yellow, and then areas of more blue-gray. Blue-gray, yeah. I would say bruising in like the back of the knee here would look cool. Work up some gross bruises.
So you want me to make maybe some of
Like
these?
paint some of that in, even though it's not in there. Especially here.
Some of those. Look
See, it's just airbrushy.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that. God, that's disgusting. You could fake a lot of that in paint to make it look three-dimensional. And I think too, there's too many white bumps. All of these wouldn't be pussy. They look more like pimples, as opposed to think of it like that, right? Like these are red things. Because yeah, right now it just looks like a bunch of cartoonishly large whiteheads everywhere, right?
So you want them red?
Well, some of them, yeah. Now, once we have our legs fully painted and they're matted down so they're not just crazy shiny, we're then gluing the Crocs to the feet. So we wanted it to just be like you're slipping these legs on like giant boots. So to do that, we use Silpoxy, our favorite silicone glue from Smooth On. Silpoxy is the best. You just buy it in big toothpaste tubes, and we just ooze Silpoxy inside of this Croc, and we're putting the foot in, and we're injecting it in areas where there's gaps, and we're letting it sit. And that held the silicone foot really well. And then it's time for another test and see how it moves. The silicone is keeping it from dropping. It's just standing up. But like, it's pretty loosey-goosey on me. And then your foot, like if you point your foot, it's gonna fall. But if you just keep your foot up, right, it's not like it's gonna fall off. But it's nice because it's roomy and it looks kind of jiggly. And a fun little thing we wanted to do to finish this thing off was to make a couple custom gibbets. We made a custom Meat Canyon logo gibbet and a custom Creature Kid gibbet for the Crocs just to kind of top it off. And I'm really happy with how these gross legs turned out. We also were playing around with some interesting ways of using Silpoxy and matting agent to kind of create a flaky skin in the crevices and stuff. That turned out really well. I hope you enjoy these disgusting fake leg boots that we made. I hope you like this video. Please ask any questions in the comments, and thanks for watching.